Hi there, I'm going to talk about the water cycle today, and this presentation should just give you the basics of the water cycle. So let's begin with the question, why not ask Ms. Frizzle what the water cycle is? So as Ms. Frizzle would say, take chances, get messy, and make mistakes. And there's nothing neat about the water cycle, so let's just begin. So we're going to begin with the atmosphere. So the atmosphere is made up of 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and 1% water vapor. But you typically associate pretty clouds and blue skies with the atmosphere. So the next step in the water cycle is precipitation. So there's 4 forms of precipitation. You can see it outlined in the photo on the slide. So the first one's snow, the second one's freezing rain, the third one's hail, and lastly we just have rain. So infiltration often gets skipped when people are explaining the water cycle because it's a little bit complex. But it basically is the runoff that occurs from precipitation. This runoff can be melted snow or it can be precipitation from the atmosphere. This precipitation then hits the ground and it drains into either a large pool of water, so the ocean or a river or a lake, or it runs or it gets absorbed into the surface of the ground. So as you can see on this diagram, it says subsurface flow, and then even below that it says groundwater flow. So that's the water being absorbed into the ground. Next we have evaporation. Evaporation can form from trees, grass, or bodies of water. Normally evaporation can't be seen by the naked eye, but it can take different forms, such as fog or even dew if you are walking in a forest on kind of a misty day. So lastly, I just want to review with you the stages of the water cycle in Ms. Frizzle's style. So first we have the atmosphere. Secondly, we have the forming of precipitation from the atmosphere. Thirdly, we have precipitation and infiltration, which is the actual form of precipitation falling from the clouds in the sky. And then lastly, we have evaporation, which is the evaporation of the water vapor from either the trees or the oceans or the bodies of water, as we talked about. So as you can see, this is a huge cycle, and it can get more complex if you look into it a little bit more. And lastly, here we have is a whole picture of the water cycle. So it starts off with the atmosphere, and it goes, it looks at volcanic streams and mountain ice and snow melt that then runs off into the groundwater flow, which is infiltration, which then goes into the oceans, and then condensation happens, and then we start right off at the atmosphere again. So I hope you learned a little bit about the water cycle and at least the basics of it. Yeah, so that's the water cycle.